Welcome into the Locked On Knicks podcast, where we are about to discuss the greatest day in Canadian basketball history. You know what? No, the greatest day in Canada's history and how RJ Barrett made it happen. Canada knocks off Team USA. We get into it now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. I wanted to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, because we are now available on all platforms. That includes on YouTube. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell to be sure you never miss an episode. And also make sure you do the same on the audio side so you never miss an episode there. If you want to text us, if you're a little bit of a creep and you say, you know what, I want to get a little bit more personal with Alex and Gavin, you can now do so on Subtext. All you have to do is hit the link in the episode description, and you can text us, and we will text you our thoughts after every single Knicks game, the latest Knicks rumors, all that fun stuff. But who's talking to you? I'm Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. I want to apologize right off the top if you're watching this on YouTube and it looks like a very poorly stage-directed hostage video. I do not currently have my podcasting gear on me due to me forgetting it at my mom's house. So we are rolling forward, as is Canada. Knocks off Team USA 127-118. Was nearly very similar to, I guess more so the Lithuania game, a little bit the Germany game, where the U.S. nearly had a miraculous win. In the game's closing moments, Mikal Bridges went one with the U.S. down 4 with less than 4 seconds left. Got to the line, made the first free throw, missed the second free throw, which ricocheted out to the corner. He got it back, drained a corner 3 to send things into overtime. You would think the U.S. would have had all the momentum that would have spurred them. Was not the case. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander continued to pick them apart, as he did all night, to the tune of 31 points, 12 assists, and 6 rebounds. And it was Reginald Jarrett Barrett, I know it's not his real name, I just thought it'd be funny, who hit the dagger in this one under a minute left. Team USA, as they've been doing often in the second half, was leaving anyone not named SGA wide open, and RJ made the US pay with a game-winning 3, which was, as much as I was rooting for the US in this one, pretty cool to see him have that moment. RJ's kind of ultimate breakout as a high school prospect was a pretty iconic 38-point game to slay the United States in an under-18 international tournament. And this kind of feels like the full circle moment of that. Him hitting that shot, having such a great game, 23 points, 7 rebounds, 8 of 16 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, 3 for 4 from the line. Again, would have been in the mix for the MVP for Canada if not for Shai, and if not for Dylan Brooks somehow dropping 39 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds on the U.S. Again, it was a wild game that basically encapsulated everything that's gone wrong in this tournament for the U.S. They were without a bunch of key contributors. No Brandon Ingram in this one, no Jaren Jackson Jr., and you could certainly feel, even though neither of those guys was great defensively in this tournament, you felt the loss of size at various points. Walker Kessler, I know I was advocating for him to play more. Did not make the difference that I was hoping he would make. Maybe it would have made a more substantial difference against a team that played through their bigs a little bit more, didn't have a finisher as hyper elite as SGA is, but he couldn't really affect stuff at the rim to the extent that I was hoping he would. And probably the bigger issue was just the point of attack defense for the U.S. was pretty much non-existent, and it was kind of funny in the second half. The U.S. coaching staff, or really as soon as the second quarter, basically started acknowledging that and said, all right, we're just going to kind of go to some gimmicks, try to muck things up. A lot of double teams, a lot of three-quarters court press. We're doing everything possible to force the ball out of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's hands, and that might have worked if not for, again, an all-time shooting performance from Dylan Brooks, who was just scalding hot, and the U.S. never really respected it, and they paid for it as Brooks went 7 for 8 from three-point range over the course of this game. I'm going to do deeper dives on RJ, Jalen, and Josh in the final 2 segments of this podcast. I wanted to just kind of do a wrap-up of this tournament run. I know I sort of did it when the U.S. lost to Germany, but there was just a lot of fun stuff in this game. I want to give, I know it's tough because he's a Brooklyn net, but I want to give a quick salute to Mikal Bridges. That shot was massive, finished with 19, 9, and 4 in this game. I think he was, and this is saying a lot about him. And we'll talk a little Jalen Brunson here in this context. He took less off the table than any other player on this American team, even Anthony Edwards. I think Ant took a little bit off with just how ball dominant he was at times, and at other times Ant was awesome and just made the right play over and over and over again. But it was a bit ball dominant. Mikal was largely unselfish, largely a really good defender, just an exceptional shot maker, both from the mid-range, from distance, and even showed off some physicality around the rim. I came away really impressed with him. And honestly, along with Ant, like those are the two guys that I would say are far and away the surest bets to appear on the Olympic team next summer, because Mikal's just a perfect fit in any context, and Ant has the talent to do it. And that's an interesting statement on the difference in the context of FIBA basketball versus NBA basketball. I got into this a little bit last show, but I think it's worth harping on a little bit with Jalen Brunson, right? Because on the Knicks, his context is pretty self-evident, right? He's the go-to scorer, the creator of everything, the son of the Knicks universe. And when he doesn't have that on Team USA, when he's not as ball dominant, like he inherently loses a whole lot of his value, because again, it could be him standing in the corner, or it could be someone like Quentin Grimes standing in the corner, and there really isn't a difference unless they're going to have time to create off the catch when they get the basketball. And defensively, there's a massive difference between those guys. And I was actually pretty certain at the start of this tournament, the way Steve Kerr was talking about Jalen Brunson, that they were almost borderline ready to make him the face of the American basketball program, which is kind of a startling rise for someone who was a little bit of an afterthought heading into the 2022 playoffs for the Dallas Mavericks. Not an afterthought is overstating it, right? But certainly not a star in the NBA by any means. And he went from that to maybe the face of USA basketball for World Cup, which is incredible, right? Because generally that's a spot reserved for Hall of Famers. But coming out of this tournament, I kind of question if Jalen has a future in international basketball. Maybe it'll be as more of a spark plug guard off the bench, but in the context they use him, like he is a lot less essential. And another thing that I saw, Skyfall, which is a great account on Twitter who kind of discusses biomechanics stuff. I'm totally blanking on his handle, so I apologize. He pointed out the 3-second rule, or the lack of 3-second rule in FIBA, kind of negates some of Brunson's advantage. I mean, his ability to just get into the lane and bully other guards. And we've seen him go to that at points and be effective doing it. But when a big is allowed to just be stationed around the rim, all of a sudden those shots get a little bit more difficult. And you also see, not that Brunson struggles moving the ball, right? Because he had some amazing passes in this game, but it's kind of funny how like they were, and this is maybe a lot of people turn this podcast off after I say this, but this is kind of a sacrilegious statement. He was in some ways the Julius Randle of this offense, in that he's a good passer and he's pretty unselfish, but it was very meticulous a lot of times in terms of how he made reads. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes he would just make a quick extra pass, but he had to be the one dictating it. Like he had one of the better sequences of this game where he pump faked his way, pass it, or it wasn't even a pump fake. It was like a pretty nasty hesitation dribble, completely froze Lou Dort, got by him, lefty hook pass into the corner to Josh Hart, who tapped it over to Anthony Edwards for 3. So that was sort of the good version of it. But a lot of times when he got assists, it was after a lot of dribbling. And when you have so many shoot first guys and you do that a couple of possessions in a row, you're just not going to touch the ball as much. And we saw that at times where, I don't want to say he was iced out, but there were times where Brunson was sitting there in a corner. You could tell he was just itching and saying, all right, come on, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. He's just watching Anthony Edwards go 1-on-3. And to Ant's credit, a lot of times 1-on-3 turned out pretty well. And he was scoring pretty efficiently. But that was kind of the reason that Brunson was getting iced out a little bit. Wasn't as effective as you normally would. And I didn't really blame Steve Kerr for trying to close with Halliburton and Reeves, guys who Halliburton's not the caliber scorer that Brunson is. Reeves could be close to that this year, but just slightly quicker decision makers, even though Halliburton in particular really played poorly down the stretch offensively and in part cost the United States this game. And look, I mean, the biggest issues at the end of the day, again, the U.S. scored 111 points in regulation. That should be enough to win. Just zero defense. And that it's kind of stunning to me that a coaching staff that has Eric Spoelstra on it, and Steve Kerr for that matter, Golden State perennially a top-notch defensive team, couldn't establish more of a defensive culture. Part of that is, of course, like the guys they're playing, but you look at the starting lineup they had today. Like Bridges is nominally an elite defender. Josh Hart, nominally a pretty good defender. Anthony Edwards in this tournament, great point of attack defender. Walker Kessler, one of the 5 best shot blockers on planet Earth. Like, I know the personnel, like when they were trying to roll out Halliburton, Reeves, and Brunson at times, wasn't great, but that should be enough to get things done defensively. And then just too many missed free throws at points. Like Edwards missed a bunch of key ones down the stretch. He only went 5 for 8. I was disappointed Cam Johnson got to the line. He missed 2. This was a crummy tournament for him. And I really like him as a player. It was just tough. Reeves was great from there. Portis was great from there. Bridges missed a couple of big ones late. Like he had a 4-point play when RJ, or would have had a 4-point play when RJ fouled him. Just missed the free throw. But I'm kind of done harping on the negative and harping on where Team USA struggled. I want to get into RJ Barrett and his incredible performance and what we should take away from his World Cup and how it will translate to the Knicks this season. But before I do that, I got to tell you about our buddies over at Ibotta. Finally taking that summer vacation you've been planning, but dreading buying all the necessities before you take off. It's time to stop spending your hard-earned money without getting anything in return. Enter Ibotta. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get cash back. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user, this is an incredible number, they earn $120 per year. That's a Knicks ticket. I would go do it just for that. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, or you could use the cash back to buy that flight you've been eyeing, or again, a Knicks ticket. That game you're dying to go to, Knicks, or a fancy dinner you've been craving. You earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. So right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 off just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKED. Alrighty, RJ Barrett, he was really good in this game. Had a couple of fun moments. I'll start with the negative because I'm always kind of negative with RJ. Jalen Brunson locked him up twice. There was one play where RJ had him in the post and Brunson maybe this is giving Brunson too much credit to say he pulled the chair a little bit, but RJ kind of like yeeted the shot a little bit, went up a little bit too early, missed the lefty layup, which you normally never really see him miss. And then had another one in transition where he tried the Euro on Brunson, and one of the announcers nailed it perfectly. He said Brunson knows exactly what he's going to do in that situation. And Brunson anticipated it, didn't fall for it at all, got to the right spot. And RJ still probably scores on that play, but it held him up just enough that Reeves and Anthony Edwards were able to get there. I can't remember if they blocked the shot or altered it, but it was a really nice recovery on that play. But then the good stuff with RJ was, as always, just the confidence, right? He was forcing the issue early, attacking the basket, did a really nice job getting inside the lane, slipping a pass in to Dwight Powell. Like that, for those of you who have been longtime fans of this podcast, you know that is pretty consistently one of my favorite parts of RJ's game. His interior passing, his love of that Steve Nash little like hook slip pass on the paint makes sense. He's his godfather. He's probably was learning that one since he was in diapers, but that was a whole lot of fun. Hit a step back mid-range 2, which I just thought was cool because it reminded me of kind of second year RJ, where he was allowed to take that shot and kind of encouraged to, coming out of pistol actions which the Knicks don't really run for him quite as much anymore, I think. But it was fun seeing him at that. And then there was this really cool play, right, where him and Kelly Olynyk were running a little dribble handoff, but it was more than that. It wasn't stagnant. Olynyk sprinted into it. RJ met him, curling around the 3-point line. And Olynyk handed off and just kind of stuck his butt out to act as a little bit of a screen. RJ got this head start going to the rim. That's what we always talk about with RJ, right? How can you simplify things for him? It was Amin El-Hassan was actually talking about this on the Knicks Fan TV show, which is, of course, awesome. Salute to CP. And he was saying, like, where RJ gets into trouble is when he tries to do star stuff. But when he's functioning within his grander offensive context, and being kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, a system player. I know that has sort of a bad connotation, but to me, the connotation there is that he's letting his coach work for him, and he's letting his coach help him out and create easier shots for him. Like, that's when we see RJ at his best, I think. And it ultimately boils down to simplified decision making, right? When Tibbs, or in this case, I think the Canadian coach is Jorge Gutierrez, I want to say, is drawing something up for him that gets him the ball on the move. Like RJ doesn't have to do too much, right? It's catch it, attack, finish. Simple, simple, simple. His athletic gifts take over, and it was a really nice play. I'm wondering if he can do that a bit with the Knicks. Isaiah Hartenstein showed off a little bit of that kind of game later in the season, the ability to be a little bit mobile with the basketball. Obviously, he's not quite as fluid with the ball as Olynyk is, who's always been kind of a perimeter, create from their big. That's not totally Hartenstein's game, but I'm hoping that the Knicks have thought about this and have kind of emphasized that to Hartenstein, particularly with no Obi Toppin, who's always sort of the one big on this roster who embraced dribble handoff actions, but it's more powerful when it comes from the center because, as RJ said earlier this tournament, then the paint is wide open. And Julius Randle could do it too, but he would have to be playing the 5 most likely, and that might not happen in our lifetimes with Tom Thibodeau. Maybe in an alternate universe, one in a trillion. There was another play where he hit a 3, staring down Walker Kessler. That was cool. It was just a really confident shot from him. A couple of times when Austin Reeves was on him and RJ just sort of babied him. And unfortunately for Austin Reeves, who is just a spectacular offensive talent. I can't emphasize enough that Reeves, I expect him at some point in his career to be a 22 to 25 point scorer in the NBA. Like he like if he gets the volume, he is that good on offense. But man, he got babied at points defensively in this tournament. RJ was more than willing to do it. RJ at one point missed a wide open 3, but got a rebound and went right at Reeves on the next possession for a big 2, going right through him to make it 198 Canada. And then Josh Hart answered a few possessions later with a cut to the basket for a 2. And then RJ just came back and hit a massive 3. So it was a really, really nice showing for RJ. Again, a iconic moment in his career. And he heading into next season, like how much of this translates, I think the biggest thing is just confidence, right? That is generally what guys take from FIBA, and the fact that he always gets off to slow starts, and if nothing else, he should be in fantastic shape and rhythm because of this play. I think that'll be the single biggest thing. In terms of changes to his game, I don't know if I noticed a lot. I think there have been high highs with him, and the shooting is good. It's hard to tell how much to take away from the shorter line, and also him just getting maybe even more open, and I would say less pressure shots on Team Canada than he gets for the Knicks. But there's a lot of good stuff. He's been really good attacking the basket, really good finishing around the rim. I'm just super excited to see him play again. And I hope he kind of combines like the aggressiveness and shot making from Canada and the athleticism we've seen from Team Canada and kind of the unselfishness he found in the playoffs for Team USA. All right, we are going to step aside one more time, and when we come back, we are talking Josh Hart and everything that he can do, and also Jalen Brunson, what to expect from both of them heading into next season on the New York Knicks. All right, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart. We already kind of got into Jalen. Again, it wasn't the tournament you want from him. I guess I said I was going to give grades, so let's say B+ for RJ. For Jalen, it was probably a C. I would say I was expecting more for him. I thought he was, and I said as much, I think a few episodes ago, that he was just going to have a moment in this tournament where he hit like a crazy shot, right? Or scored 6 to 10 points in a row to carry the U.S. to victory. And he didn't really get that chance because Anthony Edwards was the guy generally dominating end of possession moments for the U.S. But in this game, had a chance to hit a 3 in OT. He was called off the bench, ultimately couldn't do it. And just didn't get an opportunity to be a closer. Do I think that has any bearing on what he does for the Knicks this year? Nah, I don't think so. I think he is going to be just fine in terms of his ability to close out games. I think the only question is, like, obviously Anthony Edwards, for a reason, kind of became the alpha on this team. And that's sort of the only question left for Jalen Brunson. Like, he's an alpha. Is he an alpha in a conference semifinals? We saw that happen. Can he be the alpha in a conference finals? Can he be the alpha in the NBA finals? That's probably a step too far. And we maybe saw why in this tournament that's a step too far. And why he's even behind, like I did player rankings this summer, someone like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander by just a little bit, even though he's proven in the playoffs and SGA hasn't. So that could just be an overreaction on my part to FIBA. But again, that's why if you're the Knicks and you find a way to get someone like Joel Embiid, I do think that's the perfect balance for him. Because if you have someone who can anchor a team throughout a game and throughout a series, just with physicality and the ability to be kind of an overwhelming force offensively in terms of physicality. Jalen can supplement that with shot making in I guess the volcano of the playoffs, right? Like that heated forge. I know I'm mixing analogies here, but my point is he can get it done in the hardest moments, the most difficult moments, with the defense focusing in on him. I don't know if he could sustain that for 4 rounds. And you need a great defender behind him because he is going to get targeted defensively. But Joel Embiid kind of checks that box. So I could see that being a pretty darn good duo. Make it happen, Knicks. Hart was really good. Didn't play defense as well as I would have hoped throughout this tournament, but it seems like it's just really hard to defend in FIBA. Guys are ultra confident playing on other teams, and the 3-point line is again shorter. I did like that Hart again looked really confident hitting a wide open 3 in this game. Again, the shorter line might have played a role in that, but still really good to see. I hate to say it, but I couldn't help but think watching this game. Tyrese Halliburton, such a dream running mate for Josh Hart with his ability to just throw picture perfect pinpoint outlets, and the fact that he's always looking for it. Not to say Brunson isn't, because Brunson and Quickly both make that pass too, but man, him and Halliburton would be a dream together, and he just made some great plays late, and I expect all that to translate to the Knicks. All right, that's it for this one, guys. We will talk to you very, very soon on Locked On Knicks, reviewing some athletic power rankings. I promise we will finally get to that Giannis episode this week, but until then, I'm Gavin Schall. Peace out.